The May 29th, 2024 virtual meeting of the Anne Arundel County Council is now in session. We are here for the administration's response regarding the proposed FY25 budget recommendations for the county auditor. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Smith.
Present.
Ms. Pickard.
Present.
Mr. Volke. Doesn't appear he's joined us yet. Ms. Hummer. I see that she is joined, but it looks like she is muted at the moment. Ms. Fiedler.
Present.
Ms. Rodvian.
Present.
And Ms. Ledbetter.
Present.
And Madam Auditor Michelle Beaulayer.
Present.
Wonderful.
Do any of my colleagues have any questions before we begin this morning? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please read the Open Meetings Act statement.
The county attorney has asked that I read the following statement. The Maryland Open Meetings Act is a state law that requires public meetings to be open to the public and to be held in places reasonably accessible to individuals who would like to attend these meetings. In addition, provisions of the county charter and the rules of procedure of the county council require meetings to be open to the public and held in Annapolis as the county seat. The virtual format of this meeting of the county council includes alternate accessibility features that the Open Meetings Act Compliance Board and the courts have reviewed and approved, such as having a call-in phone number that allows anyone with a telephone to call and listen to the meeting, broadcasting the meeting with video and audio on cable TV and on the web, allowing written comments from the public to be filed with the clerk and considered by the council, and now allowing the public to call in via Zoom and testify live. The public access provided by this technology makes the virtual meeting reasonably accessible to the public as required by the Open Meetings Act. In addition, and for all of the same reasons, it is not necessary to suspend the rules of procedure of the county council that apply to public participation and reasonable seating for the public or media or the location of council meetings. These rules have been deemed satisfied and do not need to be waived in order for this meeting to be held.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Chris Trumbauer, County Budget Officer. Sir, you have the floor.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning to you and the members of the council. It's my pleasure to be here this morning to go through the administration response to the auditor recommendations that we all received yesterday. I'd like to thank the auditor and her team, not only for their work, but also for the back and forth of the last 24 hours as we tried to hash out our agreements, and when we couldn't find agreements, we generally found a compromise somewhere halfway in between. So what I'd like to do is share my screen, and I can walk through the recommendations here, and these are going to be divided into operating and capital. So what hopefully you're seeing now is a summary sheet. This is just a reference, but these are the auditor's operating cut recommendations, and then the administration agreements on the right. Okay, now this is very small, and I don't expect that you can even read it, but what you can see hopefully is the color coding. So in the true stoplight fashion, green means we agree. Red means that we disagree, and yellow means either we partially agree or partially disagree or something like that. So I'm only going to go over the ones that aren't green because there's no reason to talk about the stuff that we agree with. So we'll start with the Chief Administrative Officer cut. The auditor recommended a $50,000 cut there based on their analysis. So what we did in the budget office is we looked at the full 3-year average for the contractual services object as a whole, and we took the 3-year average, and then we added in the funding for the new initiatives for the Crownsville Nonprofit Center and the Office of Hispanic and Multicultural Affairs. And so we really don't think that there's $50,000 to cut here, but we could give $10,000 if the auditor wanted, or if the council wants to. The next one is an Office of Transportation. Again, I don't disagree with the auditor's analysis, but since the time that the budget was introduced, we got a couple more invoices from that contract, which are trending higher. And so if we take the auditor's recommended CPI, which is 2.2, we were previously using 3, but if we take that and then we redo the calculation with the most recent invoices, we're prepared to accept $80,000 cut there instead of the 215. Moving down the line a bit, oops, the whole page. The Department of Health cuts. This is because OIT has committed to do some equipment refresh, laptop refresh for the Department of Health. But the OIT isn't responsible for all of the Department of Health computers because health is a quasi-county state agency. They have state employees, they have county agencies, and we don't want our county OIT, to be on the hook for all of their equipment. This is kind of a big deal, and it's something that we have set up the intention to do a little bit of a summer work plan on between health, OIT, and the budget office to come up with a long-term solution of how we're going to handle this and what the commensurate level of support for county equipment in the health department is. But in the meantime, they need these funds just to replace the things that really need to be replaced. So the auditor is recommending that this shouldn't be done in the health department. It should be done in OIT. OIT doesn't want to do that because we're kind of worried it will commit them to adopt the Department of Health into their overall refresh program. So we would urge the council to leave this money here. It's one-time funding. It's not a long-term solution, but we're going to be working on this summer. If you really, really, really didn't want it here, you could take this money out and you could put it in OIT capital and they could do it there. But for this level of funding, we would just suggest leaving it where it is. We certainly acknowledge the auditor's concern about this issue, and that's why we're doing some work over the summer to figure this out. And then the final recommendation was in the water and wastewater operating fund. The auditor analysis suggests that there's $1 million of turnover cut possible here. And just looking at the math, I think I would acknowledge that that's probably true. But if you apply a little bit of a narrative on that, there's a lot of vacancies in this department right now for this fund. They are aggressively hiring. I spoke to the director yesterday. They're very confident that they'll be able to make some headway. So we went back and forth with DPW a little bit, and we're okay with giving a $500,000 cut here. So that's about half. But we really want to leave them some room to maneuver so they can hire these vacancies. We don't want the fund to be short on that. So that's all the operating, and I can either pause for questions or we can move on to capital, Madam Chair.
Does anyone have any questions about operating at this moment? We can come back to it as well. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Well, actually, before I move, I did skip over the Board of Ed. That's kind of where the real money is this year. And we agree with that cut. I've been in touch with Mr. Stansky and his team. They agree with that cut. Most of it is the New Village Academy, which obviously delayed their opening. But I did want to put on the record, the administration's preference would be that if the council is going to take that cut, that you redeploy that to other needs within Board of Education. We're comfortable with our overall level of support there. Obviously, that's within the council's discretion, but I did want to put the administration position on the record there. Okay, so we'll move to capital. This is going to go super quick because we agreed with the vast majority of the auditor's recommendations. A lot of these are updated analyses or new updated bid or contract costs and everything. So we're good with these. Good work. There's 3 that I'm going to discuss, and those are either in red or yellow. So the first is advanced land acquisition. So the auditor is correct. We don't have support for the $3.3 million. We don't have specific projects lined up for that. But if the council recalls, this is the fund that we use to take advantage of opportunities that may come up during the fiscal year to acquire land for future facilities. And we like to hold a moderate amount of funds in this object so that we can act when that opportunity becomes available. Now, it's important to remember the council controls the appropriation here. The administration can't spend these funds without a bill, without the council approving a bill. So any opportunity that did come to light this next year, we would present to the council. You would have a chance to, to appropriate those funds or to reject that. And so we would ask you not to take this cut, to leave that funds in there. If you do take the cut, it's PAYGO funding. And that just means that we would not have the ability, if a parcel of land came up that we're not immediately budgeting for, we wouldn't have the ability to acquire that this coming year. And I don't think we need to take that PAYGO cut back for any other competing needs. So we'd urge you to keep that there. All right, so I'm going to move on. The next one is under the public safety category. This is the evidence and forensic science unit. What happened here is they got a bid that was lower than they budgeted for, which is great. So the auditor is pointing out, okay, the contingency that you do for a project is based on, it's a percentage, it's based on the amount of the bid. Because the bid was low, we can take away some of the contingency. We agree with that to a point, but this project is still very early. We don't want to essentially give away that total buffer in the contingency, especially because DPW feels there might be some unforeseen costs with this one in the future, but we're willing to split the difference so we can agree to $1 million cut instead of the $2 million and change. And then the final one is on this page. This is the Brooklyn Park Community Center for the Rec and Parks class. Auditors recommending $700,000 cut here. But again, this is very early. We talked to DPW and Rec and Parks, and they feel like this project is going to have some other stresses involved, and they don't want to give away that 700 off the bat. If everything works out and we get further down and the project gets completed and closer to the end, if there's money left over, certainly we'll give it back. But they don't feel confident that that's a wise thing to do at this point. I believe everything else is in the green. And so I'll conclude my remarks. You can see the total capital budget office agreement here is about $11.5 million. I do want to remind the council, some of the auditor's recommendations are funding swaps or impact fee reapportionment. So not all of that 11.5 would be available to be redeployed. By our calculations, it's about $8.3 million is the general fund amount for bonds and PAYGO. So that 8.3 number of what we've agreed to here, that's what would be available for the council's discretion in the capital budget, obviously working along with the administration, should you choose to try and do anything there. So with that, I think I will stop sharing my screen and take any other questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have questions for Mr. Trumbauer at this time? No questions?
I told you it was pretty simple. Let me also let me just take a moment to say, Madam Chair, I know the auditor changed the process this year, and it's been a little bit different. From my perspective, it seems to work pretty well. You all seem to have liked it too. So some people are afraid of change, and it doesn't always work. But we played along this year. I think it worked pretty well, and we're always looking to improve the process, and we'll remain committed to do that.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. I think, the collaboration between the two branches is really important. And I do feel, from my perspective, I've heard good things from other council members, but from my perspective, I think the council feels the nuts and bolts of the budget process are a little more accessible with the change in the way the auditor's office has been communicating with us. So I'm glad to hear that y'all are communicating well together. And we've changed, I mean, just going to response from rebuttal is quite lovely. So, this is a team sport, local government. So, do we really not have any questions for Mr. Trumbauer or Madam Auditor? Well done, everybody. Is there any other business to be brought before the county council at this time? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Madam Chair, you're muted.
I don't know how that happened. The county council is adjourned until Monday, June 3rd, 2024 at 7 p.m. when we will meet for a regular legislative council session in the council chambers in Annapolis. Have a great day.